for a final talk of this track, which has nothing to do with AI ethics, but the focus will be on session replay ethics. This is a paper that Marty co-authored with Fran and Keith. And it's very...
keep going, you're on to my second slide now.
Who unfortunately couldn't be here today. The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, thanks. Shoot. We did this paper on replay ethics, or the ethics of session replay, and as is often the case, this is a paper I've done with Fran and Keith, and I'm the one here presenting. I give Fran and Keith credit for putting the slides together. I know a few colleagues who were working on slides yesterday. Fran and Keith had these done for me way back in August, so it was a good deal. So. What is session replay? So various websites and in fact some apps on your mobile phone will record everything that is possibly recordable about your session on that website or as you're using their app on your phone. So mouse movements, keystrokes, information you enter into a text box but then choose to delete. How long it takes you to do things, where your mouse moves, how you tap things, where you tap on the screen. And so in the paper we talk about both issues that arise when you're using a mobile device versus issues on a website or a laptop. But in the presentation today, it's pretty much just going to focus on websites. So, as we started to look at this, many of these session replay systems are administered by a third party. So if you go to a company's website, the data that gets collected there gets sent over to a third party. The third party analyzes that information and then sends the information back to the website owner and says, well, here are the problems that users are having with your website. These session replay scripts are typically written in JavaScript, and so they are scripts that run inside your web browser and collect all this information. And there was actually a paper done by Engelkart, and then there were a few popular press pieces that came off of that. And so this is a fairly common thing. Popular websites do this all the time. There we go. So Keith, in his approach to this, he goes to one of these vendors, and they have a try before you buy option. And he creates a website, and he installs the session replay scripts, and he puts, there's one web page there, and he puts right on there, this website exists to make, sole purpose is as a test, it is not to make the web a better place for end users. On the other hand, the website the session replay vendor said that their product exists to make the web better for end users, and it is only available to websites that share this goal. And so, we didn't pay for it. Maybe if we had paid for it, they would have actually gone and checked. We're suspicious. He had no problem setting up the account, and of course, our website was perfectly usable for its intended purpose. They found no problems. So as we thought about this, as we analyzed this, we considered two different scenarios. The first scenario is where the session replay data essentially goes directly back to the company or to the website owner. And graphic that sort of describes this this is kind of what we expect when we're using a website. We submit some data to the website processes that data, it gives us information as to when our new shoes are going to show up on our door, and this is kind of what we expect life to be like. If session replay is installed in the website, then the website also captures this additional information, and in this first scenario sends it back to the website owner, and over here they do some interactions. And in the paper we actually make an argument that not only is this ethically okay, it's probably ethically required to ensure that your website does not have accessibility issues for people who are differently able. And so it gives the website owner the opportunity to revise the website. The second scenario is the one that I described at the very beginning, where there's a third party involved. And so if we look at the information flow diagram for this, it's now a little bit different. Still over here is the part of this where we sort of live in our world as users of the web. We do this interactive stuff. It gets sent over to the website owner, but in between now, some information gets pulled out. Not only is the user data and request information packaged up into the packet of information, but that information often also shows up over at the third party. And so if we're having trouble, say, entering credit card numbers, then the third party would see the credit card numbers, would see the problems we had entering our credit card numbers, and that information then gets sent back to the website owner. And so the information flow is a little bit more complicated. So in doing our analysis, we used two analogies to sort of think through how people might expect information to be used in different contexts. And so our first analogy in the paper is where a person interviews visitors at a museum. And so they walk up to somebody and say, hey, can we ask you a few questions about your experience here today? And you agree, and you spend 5-10 minutes with them. They ask you their questions. And of course, most of that's done anonymously, or at least most of the time. And then the second analogy that we incorporated into the paper is CCTV monitors in a brick and mortar store. So they too ostensibly monitor how customers move through the store, when they get stuck in aisles, which products they look at, and make decisions about the usability of the space. At least those are the valued pieces of the experience. So to think about this, we used Helen Nissenbaum's Privacy is Contextual Integrity. She's got 9 steps, and so those 9 steps we'll go through here now in the next 90 minutes. It takes about 10 minutes a step, just kidding.
I'll interrupt you.
I'm scared. So we've kind of actually gone through these first few bits already, and so we're going to just kind of now take a little bit more time and go through the last few steps there. And of course, in the paper, things are much more detailed than we have time to go through in here. Otherwise, I get in trouble with Kathleen.
Yes.
So there are some questions that we think are ethically important that certainly arise. When session replay scripts are in use, what sort of data are collected? Certainly, if it's a simple, say, search website and there's no personal information collected, It's a much more or much less controversial situation than if the information are personally, or the data are personally identifiable. On the other hand, with, of course, the use of tracking cookies and so forth, even non-personally identifiable data may all of a sudden become personally identifiable. So that complicates the analysis as well. And then the other questions we have, or another question we have, is how careful are the people with the data that they receive? So now we have to, in addition to worrying about the website owner, we also have to worry about the third-party vendor. And so those questions come into play. Oops, wrong button. Another issue is most of the time we're unaware that this is going on. The transparency issue is a big issue. And this is especially true when a user deletes information before submitting it. How long the hesitation is. Those are, it seems to me anyway, deeply intimate details. I type some stuff in. I do this all the time with Twitter. I type stuff in and then I go, that's dumb. And then I delete it and it never goes out. Or that's offensive. And most of the time the filter works. Should the user give informed consent about having their every move tracked on a website? And then there are certainly cases where the third-party vendor of the session replay software has to be worried about medically sensitive information. In the United States, this is a law that has to do with the storage and transmission of medical data. And in fact, one of the cases Engelhardt reviewed was a Walgreens case. Walgreens website had this in, and medically sensitive data was going to the third-party website. They got that fixed, but it still was an issue. And yeah, in the company that we use their session replay script. They claim that suggestion replay isn't, quote, a creepy surveillance thing, but perhaps it is. So there are some possible remedies. Of course, informed consent is a big one. One of the things that the session replay company that we used said that it is the responsibility of the website owner to redact the information. So the session replay software is such that if I'm writing a website, I can mark this particular text box to say, yeah, don't take any of the information that anybody types into this text box. And that works okay if you have a statically generated website. Somebody sat down and typed out the website. Tick. But most websites, on especially these bigger sites, are they're automatically generated. They change frequently, and so now it's almost 2 levels or 3 levels removed from, oh, we need to mark this one, and how do we know to mark this one? Because it's only going to be generated some of the time, and the questions get really tricky. And so informed consent is a way to deal with the transparency issue. But many have talked about the issues that come with informed consents. So our recommendation that we come to in the paper is that there needs to be some shared responsibility for ethical use here. The website owners and the session replay vendors really have to be educators and co-partners in the making sure that sensitive data does not end up into the third-party vendors' hands. Another is to be selective, or to use some of these guidelines, like be selective about which pages actually go through session replay. But the big one is to change the information flows so that rather than having lots of stuff over here like we did in the second scenario, we make more of the information to go over here. And one way that really seems possible is rather than have the third party do the analysis, run the software on their computers as a software as a service model, license the software back to the website so that all the information comes over to our website. We use our CPUs and databases to do all of the analysis, and none of the data actually goes over to the third party. So there are business models here that I think are better than the ones that have the information go to the session replay vendor. This is an area we think is there are some easy changes actually to make, and it can lead to better behavior rather than open up the possibility for unethical behavior.
Thank you.